Back in the late Ming dynasty, there was a young man whose life looked painfully ordinary. He was broke, stuck at home with his aging mother, and every day felt the same. Nothing about him stood out. Till one day, across the lane, a new household moved in. An elderly woman and her 19-year-old daughter. She was striking, sharp, but cold as ice. And from the moment she appeared, everything in his world began to change. But before we begin, if you're drawn to stories with mystery, meaning, and the otherworldly, to legends passed down as truth, then this is the channel for you. I share new stories each week, drawn from folklore, forgotten history, and strange events that linger at the edge of belief. So tap the like button and subscribe with all notifications on so you never miss what's next. Let's begin. The city of Jīnlíng, known today as Nanjing, was situated along the lower reaches of the Changjiang or Yangtze River. Back then, it was a lively place. Crowded markets, scholars hurrying to exam halls, merchants shouting out prices, and the steady clatter of boats unloading at the river docks. But away from the main streets, in a quiet, narrow lane, lived Gu. He had talent in painting and calligraphy, but not a lot of luck. What little he earned barely kept food on the table for him and his widowed mother. He refused to leave her side, always choosing to stay and care for her instead of chasing opportunity elsewhere. By 25, worry already lined his face, as no bride had entered his house. Then, fate shifted. The once abandoned residence across the lane was suddenly inhabited. An old, nearly deaf woman and her daughter. The girl was unlike any Gu had ever seen. 19 years old, her bearing carried refinement, her face shone with rare beauty. Yet, she met the eyes of others with a chill. Gu's mother, curious, visited. She found the household impoverished, no food beyond a day, the mother reliant on her daughter for survival. She hinted at marriage between the two households, but the girl refused. "My mother is old. I must serve her," she said, and that was that. The matter was closed. Still, the threads of destiny pulled tighter. When famine pressed, the girl came to beg for rice. Gu carried a heavy pot to their door. She accepted it, without thanks. Yet, soon after, she began crossing into his courtyard to help with his mother's work. Stitching clothes, boiling rice, sweeping floors. She moved about as though she were already a daughter-in-law. Then, illness struck. Gu's mother developed a painful abscess. The girl, unflinching, cleaned and dressed the wound daily, wiping sweat from the old woman's face 3-4 times a day. She never grimaced, never recoiled. In pain, the old woman wept. "If only I could secure such a daughter-in-law to see me to my grave." The girl soothed her. "Your son is 100 times more filial than I." Gu bowed deeply, humbled. Though his heart longed for her, she never softened toward him. Not long after, the girl's mother passed away. From that time on, the girl came and went more freely, sometimes appearing for days, other times vanishing without explanation. Now, one day, a handsome young man appeared at Gu's study, saying he had heard of Gu's skill with the brush. He wanted a portrait of himself and paid generously in advance. Because the work took time, the young man kept returning to sit for Gu. With each visit, the two talked more. The young man was quick-tongued and charming, and before long, he and Gu became good friends. Still, it soon became clear the young man's eyes often followed the neighbor girl when she passed by. He tried to win her attention with small remarks and glances, but she remained cold toward him, giving him nothing but silence and distance. Then, one evening, the young man came by Gu's house with a jar of rice wine, and the two of them began drinking together. The girl stopped in, as she sometimes did, to check on Gu's mother, not realizing the visitor was there. When she entered, the young man grew bold, pressing close. His words turned from playful to insistent. His eyes lingered too long. His hand reached where it should not. A storm brewed in her eyes. She reached into her robe and pulled forth a dagger, its blade gleaming like ice. The young man lashed out, grabbed at her arm, knocking over the wine cups. Gu stumbled back in shock as the two struggled. The table crashed, chairs splintering. She twisted free, the dagger flashing between them. The young man lunged again, but she moved faster, striking with sudden precision. He cried out, staggered, and in that instant, she hurled the blade. A rainbow flash split the night. Gu lit a lamp and stared. The young man was gone, and in his place lay a white fox, its body still twitching. "There is your friend," she said, voice cold as ice. "They sent him to get me, to draw me out." Gu staggered, unable to speak. She slid the dagger back into its sheath. "This is not your concern. Keep silent." That night, Gu could hardly sleep, turning over the events in his mind. Instead of fear, curiosity consumed him. Who was she? The more he thought, the more he was drawn in. The danger, the secrecy, the way she held herself. It all made her seem larger than life, and he found himself imagining what it would mean to stand by her side. By the time he saw her again, the words came out almost without thinking. "If not for me, then at least for my mother. Stay. Become my wife." For the first time, she did not walk away, though she warned him not to press her. That night she yielded and shared his bed. But then, she vanished again, and many months passed with no word. During that time, Gu's mother left on a short trip to visit relatives in the countryside. Alone in the house, Gu felt her absence. It was in that quiet stretch of days, while he waited for his mother's return, that the girl suddenly reappeared. This time, carrying an infant in her arms. She had borne his child, though they had never married. She introduced the child to Gu, showing him how she had cared for the infant in secrecy. For several days, she stayed in his home, helping him to set up the house for the baby, placing small blessings on the boy, whispering words of protection over him. Then, with a solemn face, she told Gu, "I cannot raise him. Tell your mother you have taken in an orphan. Do not speak of me." Gu fell to his knees, begging her to stay. "Why go after all you have given?" She only shook her head. "There are things that lurk in the shadows, enemies that still haunt me. I cannot allow them to touch this child. My path is to hunt what hides in darkness, to finish a mission I cannot name. Raise him well. He will bring honor to your house, but I must walk elsewhere." She stepped into the night. Gu wept bitterly. In time, the boy grew strong, and when he came of age, he passed the exams with distinction. What surprised many was how naturally he took to the dagger, quick, precise. Gu received praise for raising such a capable son, especially since everyone believed the boy was only an adopted orphan with no mother. To the neighbors, it was bittersweet. A father admired, a son celebrated, but a mother forever absent. Gu's mother eventually passed away, leaving him to raise his son by himself. And then one night, the girl returned. She sat with Gu and the boy at a low table, the lamp burning late. She spoke of the evils that lurk in the dark, of monsters and enemies that still prowled, and of the training that must be passed down. She turned to the boy, telling him how he was now ready to leave with her if he so chose. The boy looked at his father, and though sorrow filled his eyes, he rose and agreed to go. Gu gave his blessing, wishing them luck, though his heart ached. He stood at the door and watched as mother and son walked into the night. Pride and grief mingled in his chest. He had raised his son only to see him taken away to face a destiny he could never share. From that night forward, Gu lived alone for the rest of his days, never seeing either of them again. This story comes from Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio by Jīnlíng, compiled over 300 years ago. It leaves us with thoughts that linger, that devotion can demand sacrifice, that sometimes the ones who shape us most are those who must also leave us behind. Now, one last thing before we go. YouTube's a little picky. If a story gets too dark, too bloody, or just too unsettling, they don't like to push it out to the public. But in my opinion, those are some of the best stories. So here's what we do. The lighter legends stay here for everyone to enjoy. But the darker, deeper tales, the ones YouTube doesn't want wandering into the daylight, those live in the Shadow Vault. Inside the vault, members get more than just forbidden stories. You'll also get early access to every video, exclusive bonus videos, behind-the-scenes notes, and even Q&A videos where I answer your questions directly. By becoming a member, you help me grow this channel. This isn't just my project, it's our community. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. So, if you'd like to step inside, support the work, and unlock all that, become a member today. Just click join below. But be warned, the vault is for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.